All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the school committee meeting of July 18th, 2018. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:09 p.m. And first item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is public comment, and I don't believe we have any. So moving right along, we have the approval of the minutes from June 20th, 2018. With that, I have a motion to approve by George. Second?
Second.
Second by Don. Any comments? Nicole?
Yes.
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 And yes. That's 4, motion passes. Minutes are approved.
Oh, sorry, I was voting.
Next item on the agenda is the report of the superintendent, Mr. Bohr.
Okay, so we have each of our principals here today to go over their handbook, parent-student handbook changes for school year 18-19. So will we start with Coombs, I believe? And we'll work our way up. Do you want to come up
Step
to
up to the microphone,
Please.
Mr. LaBelle.
Do you want to use this?
Kathy.
It's okay.
Complete copy.
You made it through our obstacle course, so you're.
Yeah, I did. I just had trouble looking at the flag, which is right above me. Would you just go through line item?
No, I think just the changes, right?
Yeah, however you
Yes.
feel, just so we know what the changes are in the.
Most of the changes in this year's handbook was Principal O'Brien and I did kind of an overhaul of the whole handbook last year.
I gave mine.
So there are some things that have language changes just to be aligned with the way the district is approaching things. The first change on page 2, besides the date, was adding a paragraph about communication and how parents can find more information about the school, such as using social media, which I thought this was a good place to have that information as well. Page 4 just reflected the changes in the school committee membership. Faculty listings are reflective of the hirings we've had so far, and some of the grade level changes for some of our staff members, and just leaving one position, the administrative assistant at Casey Combs, so that's still being maintained. There was just some wordage change, not the content necessarily, on page 9 in regards to attendance, was just removing. And please note on my letter that the things that are asterisk are language that are common changes for both Quashnet and Casey Combs. Just removing the word combined in the 4th sentence, now to read if absences or tardies exceed a total of 3. Just that phrase. In paragraph 5, replace school secretary with your child's teacher to arrange for missed work. It was reflecting or directing parents to go through the main office for missed student work, and we wanted them to have the communication directly with the teacher. On page 11, modifying sentence 1 to the following. Upon entering the school, a visitor must sign, present identification, and be given a pass in the main office. School insurance, that paragraph is deleted since the school insurance is not any longer offered through the district. And the last, with the code of conduct, on pages 16, 17, and 18, all levels are changed to tiers. Instead of calling them level behaviors, they are called tiers of behaviors of interventions. On the same pages, under Code of Conduct, the term misbehaviors has just been changed to behavior. Within the 3 tiers, Tier 1 is referred to as a redirected behavior. Tier 2 is identified as repeated behaviors, and Tier 3 is identified as chronic behaviors. Tier 2 and 3 will be logged into Power School, and the thinking here was Tier 1 type of behaviors are things we expect staff to just take care of on their own, not necessarily something that needs to be recorded in Power School, unless, of course, those behaviors become repeated. But it also gives us a paper trail for behaviors that might need further intervention. Bullet 6, Tier 3B, Bullet B include, quote, or any nicotine products, including vaping, certainly aligning ourselves with district initiative of the dangers of vaping. I'm sorry, I skipped over one bullet. Sorry, going back. The bullying, removing the words repeated or serious from the letter H bullet on bullying, that bullying is a repeated and serious behavior. We just felt that was a little redundant. Number 7, Tier 3, Bullet C, include use, possession or sale of. And in Bullet 8, Tier 3, Bullet I, delete the word repeatedly. The signed parent signature page is omitted from the handbook since these are handled through the verification process online. There's no need to have that page there. And then the school committee policy that was adopted has been on alcohol, tobacco, and drug use, has been added to the handbook on page 55. And then on page 57 and 58, the index has just been updated accordingly to the changes. Are there any questions?
So hopefully your page 55 looks better than mine does. 'Cause
Yeah.
Ours is looking
It doesn't
good.
have anything on it.
Okay.
That's true, yes.
It just has one sentence. It looks like it was photocopied.
Oh, that might just need to be scanned in.
Okay, all right.
Mrs.
so-
Fisher is taking care of that.
All right.
Apologize.
Yeah, they're gonna put this policy.
For you?
Yeah, it might be that we didn't vote on it. It might be that we didn't vote on it. You didn't vote on it yet.
Yeah, they'll put the actual policy in.
Oh,
So she just put a placeholder in.
Oh,
So
okay.
that when you vote on the new policy, that's what we'll
That
vote
makes
on.
sense.
That's my
Okay.
guess.
So we're
Yes,
holding
no,
it.
that's,
great, thank you.
Any other questions?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's
thank you.
I can do that.
All right, Principal O'Brien will share. Anyone have any questions or anything related to that handbook? Okay,
Thank you.
Quashnet School with Mrs. O'Brien.
Hi, everyone. Happy summer.
Well,
Thank you.
Hi. Most of the changes are the same that Paul had for the Coombs School. We worked together to make sure that the elementary handbooks were the same. So one that is different for Quashnet School is on page 28, which is the school day special subjects. For 5th and 6th grade, we want to add a health and wellness special, which would eliminate the world language special that has been at Quashnet for a couple of years. The reason being, in 7th grade, there's an exposure to world language, which creates a redundancy, we felt. In meeting with Mr. Bellistracci, we felt that this would be a better service to our kids because there is a health program in 7th and 8th grade too, and this will provide more of a background for them moving up into the grades. We also felt this would be a great way to protect some of that core instructional time where the GREAT program, which we offer in 5th and 6th grade, will move into that health and wellness special. Mindfulness will also be in that health and wellness special, and it will protect those core instruction programs a little bit more. So that would be a change just for 5th and 6th grade. We also want to create the enrichment program as a special versus having students pulled from their ELA program. The teachers felt that it was hard for all of our students to try to keep up when they're missing a certain number of classes. And we feel that we could do that. Those students are qualifying for enrichment. Then the library digital citizenship is the special we would drop in replace of enrichment. Those students are usually higher performing students who that exposure to the library is something that they really benefit with enrichment instead. So that would be the only change other than those that were already addressed by Principal LaBelle. Questions?
Can I ask a question?
Anyone?
Yeah, so I know, I'm trying to dust off. The school year seems so far from me right now. I'm just trying to remember how the specials, we are on 5 or 6 days?
It's a 6-day rotation.
6 days. So enrichment, they would get once every 6 days now?
That's what they were getting last year as well, once
Except
every
it was,
6 day.
it will be in the special block instead of,
Exactly.
Okay.
So instead of those students coming out of their core instruction with their classroom teacher, it would be replaced, instead of going to a library special, they would go to enrichment.
and when will they do library?
Library is available. Mrs. Pons is in the library in the morning from that 8 to 8:15 block when students are first dropped off in the morning, but they wouldn't have a library instruction, so to speak.
We have this fabulous new library and they're not gonna have a class in it?
It would just be those 5th and 6th graders. But they will have access to the library with their classroom teachers when they go to the library, and they would be able to go get those books out during the day, or in that morning block.
But some 5th and 6th graders will still have library.
Oh, the majority. It is only those students who qualify for the enrichment program.
Oh, I
It's
see.
only those students,
I gotcha.
yes.
And then the health and wellness, will there be any, is it all classroom instruction in health and wellness, or will there be will they get up and do things, or?
We actually have a really nice scope and sequence for it. Part of the national standards for that health and wellness is also physical fitness. So there will be a block of time that the instructor is going to be working with Mr. Morris in physical education. So that will be combined. There'll be a co-teaching model for a couple of those weeks. Then we're also going to put the puberty lessons in for 5th and 6th grade. And that will be combined with the gym class as well. So the boys can be in one, the girls can be in the other. And 15 minutes of that puberty lesson will also be for some type of physical fitness. One of the things I'm excited about is that we're going to be able to bring more of the data component into the physical fitness realm. So when Mr. Morris is doing all of the national tests that he does for physical fitness, our teacher who's doing the health and wellness will also be able to bring in a lot of the data components of that and talk about body systems and structures as well.
Would there be an opportunity for some of the ProStart kids from the high school to be involved in those classes maybe, since we're gonna have that as a
Possibly, because there is a component on nutrition as well, and like I said, we are following the national standards. Where this is the first year we're doing it, 5th and 6th grade will look the same. They'll pretty much be similar in their scope for the year, but the following year will look a little bit differently. So it's possible the ProStart students could come into that. There is a first aid component within the standards as well, so it gives the nurse an opportunity to work with that teacher, who will be Mrs. Scott as well. So I really do see a great opportunity for our students learning in a variety of ways. I think we have to address vaping, smoking, the hazards of both, and that will be certainly handled within that health and wellness special. And we have Sheriff Cahill from the Barnstable Barnstable Sheriff's Department, who will be working with Mrs. Scott as well for some of those great instruction.
So I guess my last suggestion maybe is that maybe we could look at, since we're losing that world language offering, there's certainly going to be kids and families who are bummed about that. So maybe we could offer that as a club after school or before school or however.
It's certainly a great suggestion,
Yeah.
and I could see if we have an instructor that would want to do that.
Yeah, or if we have enough interest or something, because
Right.
I think, so are they start world languages in 5th grade?
Currently, last year,
Last year.
they did have one special in that 6-day rotation that was a Spanish special.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
So, all right,
Do
thank
you-
you.
Just a quick question, just a follow-up on that. Do you recall how many students were in that Spanish special last year?
I'm sorry.
Do you recall how many students were in that Spanish language special last year?
All 5th and 6th graders, that was one of their 6 specials.
So everyone was?
Everyone was, so it would be replaced with that health and wellness. But I do feel it really does help respond to the opioid crisis that we're dealing with and in helping students make better choices at an earlier age. And I value world languages, I value cultures. However, I think that health and wellness is really speaking to the needs of our students right now.
May I just add one thing to that? It also came out of our MTSS work. So the high school, the middle high school wellness department did some problem solving around some of the student outcomes that they were seeing. And we realized very quickly that the health standards at the elementary levels are being kind of piecemealed in terms of implementation because our time is so, stretched. So this shift happened as a result of that as well. So making sure we're really giving kids the best opportunity for their social, emotional, and physical well-being that we can within the structures of the standard. So I'm sorry to jump in, but I just
Right.
wanted to share that it came out of our MTSS work as well.
So are you going to then do some sort of initial assessment of, health standards or wellness standards with this group of kids to see whether we impact those outcomes in the middle school?
I'm sure there will be assessments, but for us, we have to hit those outcomes because it's you have to hit them. So in terms of the baseline of what they come in knowing,
Right.
I would imagine that Mrs. Scott will be doing that in the structure of her class. And then there would be, it's not going to be standardized assessments. It
Right.
would definitely be a more informal.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I used that word. in
No,
class.
I
That
know,
means
I-
something
Formative.
totally
But you also know we're like, oh, we're going to have to do a survey. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm totally teasing, but
But yeah, there'll be
yes.
some before and after kind of, so whether the kids are really getting it. Okay.
And not too long ago, there was a 6th grade health special, and when I think that might have been replaced with the world language, something replaced it at the time, but we looked at the curriculum at the time, and a certain amount ended up with the counselors, a certain amount ended up with the PE department, and then some of it landed in 6th grade science in the home rooms. And so, but I think over time, it just kind of gets blurred, and I think it's really important for that age group to start sort of really zeroing in on some explicit instruction on certain topics, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Belstracci.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Members of the committee. Really, not a whole lot of large-scale changes to the MMHS handbook this year, and I'll just go through them quickly with you, and I'll answer any questions you may have. If you look at the short overview that I provided, the first 4 Roman numerals areas, those reflect solely date changes, personnel changes, and any role change or update, including school committee membership. Please keep in mind that the personnel one, I'm still in the process of hiring, so once that's done, that'll be updated and completed. And then we also added our 2018-19 school calendar to make sure that that's reflected as well. If you move forward to page 17 in the handbook, this is in regard to our attendance policy. For many years, before we were one school again, there were separate handbooks and separate expectations, and we found as we're going through it again, every year we find some different language that might be old or we may have missed. But we really wanted to take a look at the attendance policy and how it works with middle school students. For example, in high school, grades 9 through 12, we attach credit to attendance. In the middle school, we don't accrue nor do we award credit. So what we were able to add in there is just information regarding the steps that we take should absenteeism become an issue for a particular student. So it's not just penalties per se, it's supports that we have that we utilize and work with families to help students attend school regularly. That includes court action with a child requiring assistance or CRAW. We have the District Attorney's Office program that's called Keep Them Coming. And then we have other administrative actions that we take in order to help support students to attend school regularly. The next one, I apologize, I left it blank, but it's on page 19, right at the top of the page. And this deals with students returning to school from a hospitalization. We had language in there prior that a student would not be admitted to school without documentation from the medical doctors or those professionals they've worked with, and a reentry plan be created with a school representative. We cannot mandate that they provide us all medical documentation and information. So what we changed it to, upon returning to school, the student should meet with the administration to develop a reentry plan to meet the needs of that student should they be medical and coming back from a hospitalization. So we're adding a little bit and we're striking the old language. Big jump down to page 30. And on page 30, there are just a really small change right at the top of the page in regard to makeup work. Again, this has been in the handbook probably for 20-so years. We were able to catch it this year, which we're glad. We've never really utilized it, but it's always been there. We wanted to make sure that it was very clear that we wanted to strike this particular term. So the old language was that a student, upon returning from an excused absence, will be able to make up work. Well, if a student misses school, we feel they should be able to make up the work. We're not always privy to the reason for the absence. So we feel that any student that misses school should have due time to make up the work that they miss, regardless of what it is. If it's a class cut or a student leaves a building, that's different. That's addressed through our code of conduct. But for general, a parent calls their child in absence, we want to be able to provide them a chance to make up the work. So it's this kind of old language that we're looking to purge out. If you push down to page 33, this is really in regard to what we see as some of the focal points that we want to have as an administration regarding some policy changes. So at the top of that page, the second bullet down, we just really want to reiterate and be very clear and articulate our cell phone policy. So we allow them to place them in a designated area within the classroom. However, we do allow them to use them appropriately in passing periods in the cafeteria and at morning arrival. So we just added that. On the third bullet down, this is in regard to student academic integrity. And there was language in there that a teacher who observes a student copying an assignment may inform other teachers about that incident. We felt that that was inappropriate. We didn't want that in the handbook anymore, so we've struck that or proposed to strike that from the handbook, meaning that we don't want teachers speaking negatively about any student regardless. So that's something that we wanted to remove from there. On page 34, under the level 3 offenses, it seems every year that the vaping, and you've been a big part of that, and we've been a big group doing a lot of work and trying to find out what they are, how they're being used, how we can prevent them and educate students and families. That'll be a big part of some of our programming throughout the next school year. But we just added, we used to have just vapor pens. We're now adding vaporizing devices because the devices change and evolve every minute. So we don't want them, well, it's not a pen, so we want to be able to be very clear that any vaping device or vaporizer is not permitted. On page 35, we just added a little bit to our cell phone use policy, really in the form of a first and second offense and then a third offense. We just really wanted to be very clear and articulate these expectations to our students as well as our families. All of the changes that are approved by the committee will be sent out with a summer letter to be reviewed with each parent and their child. So we feel that that's going to be helpful for them so they understand exactly what happens when they get a phone call regarding a cell phone being confiscated or excessive cell phone use within a classroom that may be disruptive.
Mark,
So that's
can
just,
I
yep.
ask you one question? And I think I remember last year hearing about this policy, and it goes all the way down to Quashnet, and I was like, wow, it's hard to believe all these kids have cell phones. And then, but then you have like incidents like Parkland and things like that where schools go into lockdown or there are intruders and things like that. And it occurs to me that it would be maybe problematic that an incident is happening and all these cell phones are in this one section of the classroom. So have you guys thought about that? And
We have, obviously we have the Alice alert system, so we're in constant communication as far as the school district and building based. However, when we get into that lockdown, we want as little chaos as possible. So to have texts going out, especially if it's a drill, and all of a sudden you have 500 texts that go out and you have parents coming in, that's a concern, but that's definitely something we can consider. I know that we have our meeting coming up this summer with the FD and police department, and that'll be part of the conversation we can definitely add.
Yeah.
What they would recommend in regard to that.
right, yeah, because I think parents would have an expectation that they would be able to get a hold of their child in a situation like that. Although there are real reasons for, and I think as long as we communicate what, why we're doing what we're doing, as a parent, I would be fine with that, but I just want to make sure that they don't have an expectation other than what we are prepared to do.
Certainly. No, it's a great point. Thank you.
And Mark, I just have one comment on while you're going along. So we seem to be one page behind of where it actually falls in the manual.
The summary
Oh,
sheet
really?
is, yeah.
So I just want to make sure everybody knows
Oh,
when
I
we're
apologize.
following along, it's actually one page ahead.
Okay. I just have some really basic ones coming up. I guess it's on my 38, perhaps your 37.
39.
39, okay, so I'm a page behind. So we have students that park, juniors and senior students with licenses. We do charge a general fee to utilize the parking lot for a number of reasons, but also to maintain and know who's on our campus and what cars should and should not be on the campus for safety purposes. And generally, it's $50 for the school year. It's one of the lower on the Cape and Islands. For example, Falmouth, I believe, is $85 a year. We're low at about $50. And every year, it's kind of a little bit of a struggle. Not everybody can always get the $50 to us initially. We want to let them drive. We want to give them that privilege, but we need to have the records and the safety for safety purposes. So we've added here is that if a student pays in the first 2 weeks of school, that we give them a 50% discount off the $50 to $25. So to incentivize them to get it in and to get that stuff taken care of as it comes, we felt that's just fair to our students, as not all of them can always come up with $50. And again, this will be shared with parents of any driver that'll go out with our summer information.
What is the money used for that is collected?
So it goes into a student activities account that is labeled student parking. So for example, if we need to get safety signage, if we need to get barriers put in, if we need to have lines repainted on a parking lot, that's where that would come from.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're very welcome. And just on page 40, I for whatever reason, I couldn't add it in. I was having trouble with the PDF. But on page 40, for me, just under the smoking, vaping, and chewing tobacco, we added vaping to that, and again, vaping devices. And then we will add the Mashpee Public School Committee policy on vaping as well as that goes in. So that'll be added there where it's highlighted in green. And that concludes the changes for the Mashpee Middle-High School Student Parent Handbook.
So on my 47 and 48, there's a big chunk of block text
Is
about.
that in green? So
Student.
that's just moved. We just moved that language. It's not changed.
Oh,
We just moved
okay.
the location of it.
All right.
Apologies. Are there any questions I can answer for the committee?
I guess the only thing I would mention, you're talking about the school attendance policy for hospitalization, the request for documentation. Just to clarify, documentation is still needed from a physician recommending their return, correct?
Correct.
You don't
We
need to
can't
know
let a student
why,
in
you
if
don't
they're
need-
deemed unsafe or whatever else. We need
Exactly.
a letter saying that they're safe to return to school.
Yep.
And at that point, it's really more so about the more personal information
Yep.
about the hospitalization, the reason for. Many of them will sign a two-way release with us. We try to get as much as we can, as much as they're willing to share, because we feel it's in the best interest of the student to be able to address their needs here at school. But that's something we work with, but we can't mandate that they provide us the real personal details.
Which makes sense. I just want to clarify that it's not a no documentation. You still need
Correct.
something clearing.
No,
them
we want,
back.
yeah, we need documentation to come back, but it's just that real personal stuff that we can't always mandate.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Does anybody else have any other questions on any of these? Otherwise, we can vote individually, probably best. Alrighty. So in that case, we need a motion to approve the Casey Coombs handbook as presented, unless anybody has any recommendations for changes.
So moved.
All right, motion by George,
Second.
second by Nicole. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Nicole?
Yes.
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 And yes. All right. So KCC is approved, and now we have Quashnet School Handbook.
Move to approve.
Motion by George to approve,
Second.
second by Don. Questions or comments? None? Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 And yes. 4 to none, Quashnet is approved. And last but not least, Mashpee Middle-High School Handbook. Need a motion to
Move
approve.
to approve.
Motion by George,
Second.
second by Don. Questions or comments? None? Nicole?
Yes.
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 And yes. Thank you. All handbooks were approved. Moving on.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to recognize Dean Melby for being here tonight and supporting us in updating these policies. So she's been a big part of that, and I just want to recognize her for that.
Of course, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks She's never gonna come back if we don't.
All right, good.
All right, so I just wanted to provide a little bit of a highlight from last week's MASS Executive Institute that was held here. I just want to give a shout out to 10th grader Jessica Rulo for singing the national anthem. She did an outstanding job. This is actually her second year of doing it, and from what I hear from the MASS planners, they would like her to continue on
Forever.
till she graduates or come back. I also want to acknowledge 9th grader Skylar Rimple, who is our student rep on the school committee. She was a participant in the ending session. It was a panel discussion, and she sat next to the commissioner, correct?
Commissioner of Education.
Commissioner of Education. There was a senior from Natick or
She's
another
from
student.
Newton South, and she's on the Massachusetts Board of Education.
Right, so as the commissioner said, she's one of his bosses. And we had MASS president, and then we had Tom Scott, who is the executive director of MASS. And we had the
Dr. Darnice, the keynote from
Avant?
yes,
Something like that?
she was amazing.
So it was various topics, but what was so impressive in Skyla is just her thoughtful sharing and her insight. And one of the quotes, I did think I put it on Facebook, was, and I forget what the question was, how she evolved into this, but she was talking about school, and she said that school is not something that you have to have, it's something that you get to have. And just that mindset of her perspective on school. And one of the superintendents, who is an upcoming president, I think, of the group, has asked that she be coming back when he's president to be more involved. So I foresee both of those students being very involved as we continue on, and they definitely made Mashpee shine.
And I got an email from Tom Scott about Skyla. Can I just read
Yes.
it? Is that okay?
Yes.
So Tom Scott is the executive director of MASS, and he was the moderator of the panel. And so he said, thanks for connecting us with Skyla. She is such a neat kid, magnetic personality. She made the panel for me. So that panel had the commissioner of education. Like, it had incredible people who all did phenomenally. Skyla was really the shining star in it. She was just amazing. So
And her parents were able to join us for that event, and so afterwards we were out there eating lunch, but the number of superintendents who made one-to-one comments and connections with Skyla was very impressive, because they were so impacted by the words coming out of a 9th grader. I do believe she will eventually be President of the United States.
God, let's
She
hope.
really has that ability. And then finally, I just want to say that we, as well as Paula Bell and Lindsay Kett and Jamie Curley, did an MTSS presentation as one of the breakout sessions. I think we had about 23 attendees, and it was a lot of fun to share the journey that we've taken so far and some of the results, particularly at the secondary level, that we've been able to achieve through sort of the changes we made in our system and the approaches that teachers are now using. So that was a nice opportunity to do that. So that is,
May I ask,
sure.
it strikes me as very awesome that we get to host that. Have we always hosted it, or
I
how?
was just gonna ask the same question,
So
how we get to.
the history, as I understand it, was years ago it used to be at Falmouth High School, and then they undertook a rather extensive renovation project that required them to find another location. So that's how it originally came to Mashpee. Our high school was newer. I think it was under Ann Bradshaw is when it first came to us. And you know, they give us so many compliments about our staff. So the cooking staff and Gus, Sean Maroney and all of his IT support, the secretaries that are there are just, you know, do everything that they, so I think it's very welcoming. I have nothing but compliments every time I turn around about everything that happens here for them, which I do really nothing for, but they're very appreciative.
Yeah.
And, you know, they have it in the Cape area because it is a great place to attract superintendents too in the summer versus maybe out Western Mass. A lot of them bring their families, so it's important to us that they continue to want to come to Mashpee.
Yeah,
It's great.
that's great. Congratulations.
And a definite shout out to Gus.
Yes, Gus did a great job with the food, and his staff.
And his staff.
A lot of people, yes. And one other thing that wasn't on here was just an update from our community picnic experience, and that we sold 3 towels for $60 and $342 in ice cream. And so I think that was a step forward in our outreach to the community, and I think it was a great experience. So thank you all to the members who participated, which was all 5 of you.
So can we send something to Mark Lawrence?
Yeah.
From you?
I
Okay.
sent him a note from me,
Okay.
a personal thank you, but yes, we could.
We could do something from the committee.
Can we do something from the committee?
And-
I mean,
and
I know
at
you
least
could
a
just
verbal
tell him
thank you
tomorrow
right
night
now,
when you see
yeah.
him, but
Yeah.
but maybe we should,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, I agree.
We can draft that for you and then.
Okay, thank you. And at least verbally, thank you, Mark Policave, for donating that ice cream.
yeah. Can you make sure that that gets in the minutes, Kathy?
It was a big hit.
Yeah.
Cotton candy was a big hit.
It's a popular choice.
Yes, and thank you for everybody that scooped. I had the privilege of collecting money with Mr. Bohr, and you all worked very hard scooping.
Yes. Some of us with smaller scoops than others.
Yeah.
Trying to make more people get ice cream rather than run out of ice cream.
All right, does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Bohr?
I guess the only question I had, which is related to that, is where those funds are going?
So the funds are going into the student activity account, which is a separate one for #WeAreMashpee. So that's where the towels are purchased and any money, and then it's because it's related to outreach, which is sort of where all that's flowing, that's where that $342 went.
Okay.
Constitutes our entire outreach budget for I personally don't think that's funny, but we'll get to that.
Speaking of money, next on the agenda, we have the report of the business administrator. Mr. Vogt.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, we're going to talk about the new student activity guidelines and procedures. After a meeting today with the working finance group, we felt that we wanted to put this on hold until the next meeting. But I do want to just hit some highlights on student activity accounts. I've done this before, but I just want to make them very, very clear.
Let me make sure I understand. So we are not voting on this.
No.
All right.
I was ready to have a vote, and some questions came in yesterday and today. And for me to move that into the guidelines after meeting with the subcommittee, we felt that we wanted to move that off to the next meeting.
All right, so do
There
we
were,
have,
There were a number of changes that came in, and the initial thought was to send out something with the red changes, but then it got to that point that it just was impossible. So, Finance Working Committee, I would like to make a motion on behalf to postpone item 1 under the Business Administrator, vote on that until the August meeting.
thank you, George, that's what I was gonna ask for. All right, I need a second, please.
Second.
Second by Don. Any other discussion on that? None, Nicole?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
And yes, so we will postpone item number 1 under section 5, adopt new student activity guideline and procedure till the August meeting.
And could someone notify the Board of Selectmen why we're postponing it so that I don't get a message about why we didn't again vote on it for this?
Well, that I'd like to explain right now. This is the students' money and really has nothing to do with the town as such. We're just the custodians for that money. It's not the town's money. These funds are to benefit the students and not anyone else, not to offset our budget or in any way. It's made up of 2 accounts, an agency account, which is an interest-bearing account, and it's made up of a checking account. One of the questions that came in, and we had changed this policy about 4 years ago, is how do you replenish the checking account? And in most cities and towns in the Commonwealth, what they do is they vote a maximum amount of money that you can have in the checking account at any time. We felt that about 4 years ago, the town accountant, the town treasurer, myself, the accounts payable person in the school department, and the assistant town manager came up with a plan to replenish it by the warrant. So when a student activity submits a warrant with the invoice, that's when the checking account gets replenished. Now, I still want to set maximum amounts, which is coming up next. But we have already put into place, I know the concerns of, I assume the concern, I'm assuming that the concerns of the town fathers are the safety of the invoices and so forth, and keeping the money in a safe situation. So we have put in all those guidelines, the checks and balances, the sign-offs. Those are already in there. We put those in right away. But these accounts are the students' accounts. They're overseen by the school principals. The high school has a number of student activity accounts, whereas the 2 elementary schools basically do not have. They have one agency account, and because they don't do any fundraising. It's mostly the pictures and the Stop and Shop. So we have built in the safety concerns that we feel are very, very, very good right now. It's just getting the language to meet everybody's approval. That's basically what it is.
So I don't dispute any of that, Paul, okay?
Well, it's the law.
I know, but the bottom line is, the town, in their town audit, was flagged for us not having this policy.
Correct.
And all I'm saying is, we've told the town that we were gonna pass this first in May, then in June, now we're not doing it in July. I don't like to be called a liar, but I told, if I'm told we're gonna do this, and then I say, this is what we're gonna do, we have to proactively go to them and tell them why we're not doing it. That's all. I just don't wanna be the go-between between
Right.
the
I've also,
superintendent and the town, and if you, in your next meeting with Rodney, can just make it clear about why we're delaying, so that I don't get a text message from anybody, I would appreciate that.
Nicole, you can feel free to direct that at me as well
Yeah.
if you want, because I mean, they're under no obligation to go through the chair, but typically protocol has been between town bodies
Right.
to go through the chair.
Well,
So-
maybe, and I don't mind having, there being some informal mechanisms where we communicate. It's
Mhm.
nice to know that they're chaffed about something. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
But I'm just saying, could we not wait for him to find out by reading the
course.
transcript and maybe proactively reach out and say, this is our intention, and,
Yep.
you know, that's all.
Right. But I've also moved forward in hiring an outside audit firm, the same audit firm that the town uses, to do an audit on these student activity accounts. And he's drawing up the proposal. It's $150 an hour, not to exceed a certain amount. So, and it won't get to that amount. I will give them the information in September, and he said he'll work on it. That's a busy time of the year for them because they're municipal auditors. That's when they're doing all their audits, so he said it may take a little longer. But I want to make sure, I chose the town auditor. We have them do the end of the year report. I felt that this would be a flow that would flow right into that.
I don't mean to cut you off again, Paul, but just to clarify a little bit too, the only reason why I guess I say that too is I've gotten zero communication from anybody. So even if they do and you want to communicate with them, whatever, it would be nice if somebody would at least, if they have an issue,
No, you signed up
least-
for chair and you don't even get any
at
text
least
messages or
include me in
emails or
something.
anything?
I've gotten
It's
zero
an automatic
communication.
forward to you.
You're totally-
It's so much easier that way.
Totally
So-
getting a rotten end of the deal there. I know you
Yeah.
want this leadership experience, and
So it'd be nice to at least be included.
All
Like, so if they, you know, so if you want to just let them know, hey, maybe include them in on something.
yeah, okay.
And, so we have moved forward on safety measures as far as the funds are concerned. We have moved forward on an independent audit. And, I'm sure there's going to be findings. I've talked to the auditors. They want to work with us. They want us, and, we don't want to put something forward that isn't the best thing we can put forward. And if it takes another month, another meeting,
Yep.
so be it, Mr. Chairman. I've had my, unless there's questions.
I think I can say that it is not on the procedures themselves, but basically the way the document is being presented. There were several word changes that came up, that type of
That type of-
minutia,
Just
if
clean
you
it
will, but in order to make it a cohesive document, that's
Yeah.
the reason we're recommending. But the procedure, if you have read through this document as to how everything is to flow, where it is to go, how it's audited, the whole 9 yards, there was no discussion of changing any of that. It's simply to make it like a table of contents,
Yeah, easier to read.
easy to
Easier
read.
to read.
So can I ask to my fellow members, after you read the policy, did you have any inclination whatsoever to set up a student activity account?
Would I set one up?
I'm just saying, it's a lot.
It is.
You
It's an
know,
onerous
and
process.
I was asking Patty today when I saw her, I said, sometimes we make things should be cumbersome because we don't want people to enter into it lightly. And I was just curious, I wasn't here, I don't know what the previous policy looked like, but I'm just curious, this was a lot of pages. I just wondered, has it doubled? Is it about the same? Is it?
I would say it's about the same. The elementary schools really, it's been years since they've
Right.
had fundraising. Have you had an increase in the number of students?
Yeah, I was
Student activities, have you had any increase? I thought I was the only one that was hard to
We've had a
hear.
couple of, like obviously we are national, that's more of a district piece.
Yeah, that's new.
So not a
Not
ton,
really.
no. There are actually some more that are more on the end of being almost obsolete that still exist that we need to look at. when we
Well,
get
I
on.
guess mine was more about the policy itself. In other words, if you're a faculty member and somebody's asking you to be an advisor, are they going to look at this document and go, holy moly, this is,
No.
okay, so it's similar to what we have been doing, it's just we've refined things and corrected some
Correct.
loopholes.
Correct.
Okay.
And when this gets approved and voted on, I will sit with the high school principal because, as he just said, some of the clubs are no longer they're not being
Active,
used
yeah.
active. and we have to address some of the graduating classes, because the senior class president just can't come in and say, oh, I'll take that money. There's a whole process to that, too. He has to set up although the policy said he just has to open up an account, he can use his social security number. In other districts, I made them open up a nonprofit organization, so it doesn't have the name of one person on it as the class on it.
Well, I appreciate all your work on this. I know it's not, I know it's labor intensive, and I don't want to imply otherwise, because it's.
No, I'm not.
I'm grateful to you. And I think you'll notice that once you put an asterisk that we were going to vote on it, you probably got a lot more comments on the document than when you shared it with us a month ago.
Most of
when
them came in within the
Yes.
last 48 hours.
Yes. So we own that, so.
Yes, we do on that.
But we are using all of the forms, the treasurer's form, the warrants, so we do have a check and balance. Yeah, go ahead.
The one thing that I would ask is, prior to the next meeting, if you can distribute a list of all of the accounts and the balances as of June 30th,
I can bring them right up to July 18th.
or July 18th, but
Okay,
at
but
least as of June 30th.
I know you had a question on that particular document.
Yes.
The accounts at the the high school is the only one that has an account. They've never had numbers beside them. So, to recognize the actual student activity.
Right.
So what I want to do is use that document to list every one of those accounts. The 100 would be the high school, the 200 would be the middle school. There would be a list. Theirs would start with 201, 202.
Okay, because I don't recall the school committee receiving a listing of all of
You have
those in the past. So,
You'll be receiving them quarterly.
Great.
okay,
Okay, as soon as we get this done, I think it says in there that you'll receive them quarterly.
okay.
All right, are there any other questions? Mr. Chairman?
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, moving, should I do this, or?
Continue on.
Okay. I would like to set maximum balances for the checking accounts. And this was voted on previously, years ago, before I came here. And the maximum amounts on the checkbook side were $20,000 for the high school, 10 for the middle school, and 10 for the Quashnet and the Coombe. The high school is much larger because they have monies for the prom and yearbooks. And, the town treasurer actually transfers the money. And if there's ever been a time where they had to go over the 20,000, the principal could make a call and say, look, I got the yearbooks and the prom, we need to move 22,000 or whatever. Ordinarily, we've been very fortunate because it usually comes in 2 or 3 invoices, the yearbook and the prom, you booked it and so forth. So I would need a vote on that.
So, I'm sorry, as it stands now, so the money sits where, and
Money
it gets
sits,
moved into a checking?
I can tell you, the money sits, let me just give, the money sits in the agency account, because that's an interest-bearing account. But back prior to that process that we went through, that we decided we were gonna use for the replenishing, they would just, the principal would send a request down to the treasurer to transfer 8,000, because he had high school principal,
Yep.
12,000 in his checkbook, please transfer 8,000. We don't do that today. What we do is we use the warrant as the replenishing to the account.
Gotcha.
So there was money left in those accounts when we moved that about 4 years ago, when we decided to use that procedure. So the high school has like $9,303 in their checking account today. Now, if a student activity said, well, I just got an invoice for hats for the opening day or something, they would bring that invoice in for, let's say, $3,000. We would move $3,000 on the warrant over to it would become $12,303.92. Then we pay that invoice, and
Gotcha.
we come back down to there.
Makes sense.
But we never want, I want to set a maximum, and you can change this. This is my request. If you want to make it 15, that's fine. But I never want a maximum of more than 20,000 in the high school and 10 and 10 in each of the other schools.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
I guess I'm a little confused. If we're using warrants as a replenishing to be able to fund the checking account, why shouldn't the checking account be a zero balance account then?
You can make it zero.
So
You want to vote, that would be the
only-
then all you have to do is vote the maximum to be zero.
Because in that manner, the only time the checking account is funded is when there is
Right.
a approved warrant.
Right. There are certain situations where a time issue, where they would need funds to pay a bill. And this has happened, where they did not have enough. It had to be done that day, prior to the signing, prior to that warrant coming through the business office, having you sign it and send it down to the town hall, where we had to transfer funds. And the principal would call the treasurer, and he would have a discussion with him, and the treasurer would move those funds. So,
But in that case, then, if it's quote unquote an emergency, the principal is having that conversation with the treasurer to get them
to transfer
comfortable
those funds. Yeah.
to transfer the
And
funds.
most of the time, he has given his reasons, he has justified it to the treasurer, and I have never had a principal say, geez, I just called the treasurer and I got this situation where I need the money today because we have to pay in advance to go to that park where they have the roller coasters or something, and we just don't have the money, we don't have the invoice because we're going to pay it in advance. It's a senior class trip or whatever.
Right, but you've developed in your procedures a process for those situations, correct? So, I guess I would make a motion that we set a maximum of zero for all checking accounts.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table for a maximum of zero for checking accounts for the middle high school, Quashnet, and Casey Coombs. Do I have a second?
No.
Well,
I
I guess
will-
I'll second for discussion
Okay.
purposes.
Second by Nicole.
So how does that impact right
Yeah.
now?
What do you mean?
Well, so are there any checking accounts with a balance right now?
Those are, yeah, they have balances.
So how are you gonna make them zero?
When they make, at one of the warrants, you just won't move the money.
No,
You'd
you
work
would
it
need
down to
move-
zero. You'd have to work it down to zero, or we can put it all back into,
It should
into
go
the-
back into an
right, we can,
interest-bearing account.
we can put it back into the agency account, very easy, just make out a check, reverse to the agency account. I did talk to the town treasurer about this, he doesn't have a problem with the maximum.
What about the principal of the Mashpee Middle-High School?
Yeah.
Can you hear what we're talking
Would you,
about?
would you mind coming to the microphone, Mr. Belstrade? Yes, please. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So you want my thoughts on the zero balance?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ah, all right.
You
No,
did
so,
hear.
no, on occasion, it's not not tens of 50 of times a year, but there are a handful of times a year when we do need to access funds to pay a vendor or somebody for a service. So in that case, we would generally go through the town treasurer, and he would make the money available to us. So that would be my only reason behind keeping some type of balance, but as long as we could get the money quickly through the town treasurer with a zero balance, then I would be amenable to that.
But you've done that, just to, you've done that before where we had to call the town
Correct.
treasurer with, like, I don't know where those parks, sometimes those parks you need a check in advance.
Yep.
Or you need the check when you go out to the, senior trip to
Correct.
wherever you go. I remember that.
Yeah, because right now it's usually anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks out to get a check, to be eligible to send the check out. We can pre-write the check, but we don't send it out until obviously the money's in the appropriate checking account. So, that's the only concern I would have about a zero balance, but as long as there was a mechanism in place where the town treasurer could move that money within that short amount of time, then I would not be opposed to a zero balance.
What's a short amount of time?
I would say within a day to 2 days, because that's when it usually comes up. Sometimes it's a matter of 24 hours. We may need a check cut. And Treasurer Mahon's very, very good about that generally.
I have a question for you, Don. So I'm thinking with you making the motion for zero balance, you must have a negative, some sort of negative of why we shouldn't have a balance in the account. So I'm just kind of curious as to what that might be.
So my view is if we are going to have a process which requires approval, this ensures that before the funds are spent, that approval has been gained, so that, there's no ability for an individual or individuals to be able to spend money without following the process. Because otherwise, if it's in the checking account, and if someone was to have access to that account, they could access those funds.
Well, the principal signs the
principal
check.
is-
Yeah.
I sign every
No,
check
no.
personally, so any money that comes out of that account,
Yeah,
I sign off on it.
No, I do,
These
but
guys.
Yeah, I'm the only
Really?
signer.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're the only one that can sign checks, period, for your school.
Correct.
Okay.
And same with the other
And then the other
two
schools, the principals sign.
Yep.
I mean, the other part, even though it doesn't earn a whole lot, is if it's sitting in the checking account, it's earning zero interest, right?
If it's in the checking account, it's zero interest, yeah. And the bank,
Right.
that's just what you said, they're not paying big time.
Yeah,
So-
right, and they're not
Probably close
currently
to zero.
paying a lot, but
Close to zero.
You know,
Yeah, they are.
Well,
It's not
you know,
a
exactly.
few pennies is something.
Can I make a suggestion? If we could just maybe give them a maximum, the 3 elementaries, 5,000 and 10,000 at the high
Yeah.
school, that just gives him, some,
Well, does anybody else have any questions on the motion that's on the table?
Well, I guess my question is, like, if I had this list in front of me with the amounts that are in those accounts, I'd know how big of a problem this is right now. Based on my understanding, I'm struggling to figure out why there's money in the checking accounts that hasn't been spent. It's because an invoice came in, or a cost came in lower than we anticipated, or why is there money?
I think traditionally, there's always been a balance maintained in the
it's all-
checking account for those purposes that we spoke
Oh,
about
so it's
earlier.
just,
Yeah.
it's just
Correct.
continuously rolled over.
in other words, the procedure that we changed, and again, it's about 4 years ago. It could have been, that's a procedure that we use here. We felt that that was one of the things on how we process money back to the checking account was a better way of doing it. In other cities and towns, the principal can come in and say, I got a $20,000 level. I have 12 in my checking account now. I want to move 8 more over. The school committee would take a vote and move it over. And he would, there would be explanations. Because you don't want to leave that kind of money in the checking account. You want to leave it in the agency account for that little bit of interest. This is basically the way business runs too. It goes into an interest-bearing account, and as you have to meet payroll or you have to meet accounts payable, the town is
Right.
moving the money.
Right, I mean, best practice would be to maintain a zero balance and move it when you need it.
Just, Mr. Funk, do you know if the bank charges a fee if you don't maintain a balance in a
Oh, they
checking
might in the
account?
checking account.
I don't know if that would apply to a school, but.
All right.
But I think right now, Quashnet has about 4,000, the checking, high school had 9,000, middle school had 2,900. I'm giving you rough figures, and the Coombs was 1,700.
All right.
Well, I don't think we can consider your motion, I mean, I would have to vote no, because I don't know, there's a couple things. I wouldn't want to make you guys do that and then find out we're going to get charged a penalty for having a zero balance or something like that. But it's clear we have balances in all those accounts, so there would, but I like it notionally. Just because we've got these new policies in place and it seems to make sense, like you said, and the fact that we do have, I mean, we're not talking about hundreds of dollars not earning interest, we're talking about, you know, on the order of $15,000 not earning interest, which seems kind of silly. Probably a little to be gained by getting that out of there.
Yeah, you know, based on what you're telling me, the funds are readily available, all it takes is a phone call. I just don't like the risk.
If everything goes well and we have that conversation, everybody's available and able to
Yep,
do those
that's the
things, then
other-
that would, and ideally that helps. But there are times where, you know, if there's somebody that's not available and we need something on a real short order, that it may become problematic.
Well, that's the only part I don't like is that we have to go then and ask permission to get our money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Mark should have ready access to that if he needs it.
That's the student's money.
It's a student's
Student's
money,
money,
Thank you
it's
for
not our
correcting.
money.
Yeah.
I want to
It's
make
the
that
students.
perfectly
Yeah,
clear.
that's what I mean. It's not the
Right.
town's money, and to go to them seems sort of against what we try to preserve here. at the
Well,
table.
it's the fiduciary process that is set up in order to ensure that, you know, there are not losses to those accounts. You know, but you know, I can see either one. You know, if expediency is a concern, then obviously you want to have a small balance available. You just have to accept that there potentially could be a little risk.
Well, there's risk.
There's
When
risk.
when you handle cash, there's risk.
But we're not handling cash here. This is
Right, in the checkbook.
in the checkbook and writing checks. The only risk, the real risk you have is someone fraudulently manipulating a check after it's been
right.
sent.
But
Right.
the principals run the checkbook.
I know, but what I'm talking about is you're well aware is if someone was to alter the check after it was sent out, after Mr. Bellistracci has signed the check, the more funds you have in an account, the more funds that are exposed.
Well, so I think that brings us back to the original point, why Paul wants to set some limits. I would be comfortable, and I don't know how, I have to make a new motion, but
Oh, we just have to vote on this one, and
Okay.
then we
This one.
can make
Let's
a
deal
motion.
with that.
All right, so if there's no other comments, we'll go ahead and vote on this. Nicole, how do you vote?
no.
Yes,
No.
No? All right, 3-1, motion doesn't pass. So that being said, if we have another motion.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we set that we amend these maximum limits to be 10,000 for the high school, 5,000 for the middle, elementary, and elementary schools. It's basically half of what was initially recommended. That would put all the
Okay.
school accounts under that threshold currently.
Second.
And
All
then
right.
you guys can start to spend that down to get to your goal, which I think is appropriate.
All right, so we have a motion by Nicole to have the middle high school at 10,000 capped, Quashnet at 5,000, and KCC at 5,000. Seconded by George.
Wait, and
So-
then
To break the middle out.
Middle school.
Oh,
does
middle
five.
school is separate.
Oh, yeah, they're separate.
High school is 10, the other three
So
are
it is
5.
10, 5, 5, 5.
10, 5,
Okay.
5, 5.
So motion is for the high school 10,000, middle school 5,000, Quashnet 5,000, and KC Coombs 5,000.
Correct.
And seconded by George.
Yes.
so just a clarification in regard to your motion, because the comment then made, is that part of the motion or not? So you said you want to set them at 10, 5, 5, and 5, and then have them
Well,
drop.
yeah, we could, I'm doing this on the fly, Don, so
No, that's
just,
fine.
bear
That's
with
why I'm
me.
asking for
But
clarification.
what I added at the end was with the goal of getting the balances down to zero, you know, that would be our goal, would be to get it to more of what Don said, is that, you know, we're not moving money in that we're not spending, right? So theoretically, these balances should start to fall and not go back up.
They
think
could do that, yes.
I think that's a great goal, and I
That's
agree
a
with
great
you.
goal,
I don't
but
see
you
how
don't
we
want-
could make that part of a motion, though, because it's too open-ended.
Yeah.
Well,
Just to
that's
say,
what,
yeah.
so Chris says we can't do it.
Wait a minute.
That's my opinion.
Well, that-
I don't see how that would be
That's why I was
feasible.
asking for clarification in regard to what your motion
No, my motion was just on the new maximum limits. That's
Okay.
So we have
Fair enough.
10, 5, and 5. These are
10, 5,
maximum.
5, and
These,
5, 5,
4
5.
fives, 10 and 4 fives.
3 5s. 3 5s and a 10.
These are maximum. These are maximum. So we can start working it down to, let's say there's 1,000 in the checkbook. I'll use the high school, because that's where most of, you can move it down to 5,000, you know, and not increase it. So when it comes time to replenish it, then,
And we'll be able to check on this because we're going to be getting these quarterly
Correct.
reports, so
Correct.
we can kind of
Correct.
keep,
we could always change our minds later.
yes, of course.
Cool, give me a hard time.
right, when you see the reports and where it's
It's much
spent.
easier when I'm sitting closer to it. I can control it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
No, mercifully.
All right, Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Yes? So 3-4, down opposed. Motion passes.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. All right.
The next thing I need a vote is, it came
No.
up at the last meeting, is the price estimated calculator. As you know, that the state requires a weighted average, a minimum weighted average for FY '18 was $2.86. We were in compliance. For school lunches, we charged $2.85. The weighted average was, our weighted average was $2.88, not $2.86. The minimum weighted average for FY '19 expects to be $2.92. By increasing Quashnet to $3 from $2.85 last year will bring us to the minimum for the FY '19 at $2.93.
So
No.
moved.
And all the others
Wait,
stay the same?
No?
No?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was just going to read those. For FY '19, the Coombs School would remain the same, $2.75. The Quashnet would remain, would go up to $3 from $2.85, and the high school, middle school would be $3. That is correct. The two would remain the same.
So moved.
All right, so the motion is to keep KCC lunches at $2.75, increase Quashnet to $3, and Mashpee Middle-High School will increase to $3 for
No.
FY '19.
Stays the
Or
same
stays
at $3.
at $3 for FY '19. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Nicole. Any discussion?
so is there any difference between the lunches provided at Quashnet and at the high school?
It shouldn't be.
So they should be equivalent? Okay. That was my
Is
question.
that it?
That's it?
All right, Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 And yes. 4-0, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Fung. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
All
I
right.
think I'm all set.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're going to move along to item number 6, under specifically assigned unfinished business, and we have the retreat and ethics training.
So the retreat is scheduled for August 9th at 5 p.m. It's at #WeAreMashpee. We do have part of the evening. The first section would be an ethics training that Jim Hardy from MASC is going to provide to committee members and Hope and myself. And in terms of an agenda, working on our FY19 goals and coming up with an action plan, and then dinner options what your choices were, whether we want, we could order from since it's many options, very local, you could order from a certain place and we can pick it up, or we could have something brought in.
And I also have a little information on that I learned last week on Thursday that I am going away for 5 days on a military trip, starting a day before that. So I will not be around. I'm not going to tell you the location because you'll be upset with me. But unfortunately, I will not be here for a period of time.
Isn't this like the Three Musketeers, though? Not much of a retreat if our chair's not there.
The
So
vice chair will have to run it.
Is there-
I'm willing to do whatever. If you want to move the date, we can. Otherwise, I'm not going to.
Well, the 8th was, it was originally the 8th, which,
The 8th would be my travel day.
right, so you couldn't make it anyway, so
I
I
would
don't
not
have
be
to
able
feel
to
bad
make
about
the
that.
8th. Yeah.
But what about the 7th?
I could do the 7th.
Do we know if Jeff can do the 7th?
We don't.
That's the National Night Out
Oh,
through the police department, which is really on the agenda because
Yeah.
I wanted us to outreach there.
6th?
Monday?
I mean, I'm open to
Sixth.
explore other dates. If there's another
Sixth?
date that works for everybody.
How many can do the
I'll make it
6th?
Jeff.
Monday the 6th?
I could do
Can
the
you do the 6th,
6th.
George?
Yeah, I can do the 6th.
I can do the 6th.
I could do the 6th, and I could do the Thursday of the previous week, too, like as a backup, the 2nd.
That's out.
Oh, that's out for you, okay. All right, so we're gonna look at the 6th.
So look at the 6th. We'll check with Jeff, make sure it's good with him.
It's
And,
not Hawaii, is it?
What?
All right, it's Las Vegas.
Oh. Then no, I'm not.
Okay, so we'll shoot for the same time, and we'll double check with Jim Hardy, but we'll try to do it on Monday, August 6th.
Oh, because we gotta make sure it works for him, too. What
And then, do you have a preference do you want us just to resolve the food issue, or would you like to be able to place an order at a restaurant and we'll get it, or have them bring in something that we would all eat from? Like, you could order off of a menu, like from a Bobby Burns or Sienna, or you could have Panera bring a catered thing.
Can I vote no on Panera and Bobby Burns?
Well, that narrows it down to CN.
Well, or, I mean,
Or
I
something
don't know,
else, yeah.
there might be other options. but-
Why don't we just order individually from Sienna?
Okay, let's
Let's
do
That's
go
that.
probably
for that.
the
We
easiest.
could do that.
Okay, let's
They
do
have
it.
nice takeout containers.
Do they?
Yes.
Oh. Only eaten in.
Good time.
Okay.
I'll go pick it up.
Well, I appreciate everybody's flexibility on the date. I apologize.
All right.
Just found out about it.
So we're gonna try to make
All
it
right.
the 6th. Fingers crossed. Should we,
They twisted my arm.
should we just quickly assess whether the following week has any dates that might work in case Jim can't do the 6th?
So, what about the 13th? That's a Monday.
That a Monday? So I'm not sure if my travel day is going to be Sunday or Monday coming back.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet.
14th, August 14th?
That should be safe.
The middle of that week works for me, 14, 15, or 16.
That's okay with me.
The conference ends on the 13th, so
Does
15th
anything
and
work
beyond.
for you or not?
Anybody else
Wait.
issues that week?
It ends on the 13th, so
It
I'm
ends
not
on Monday? Monday is the 13th.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, then it ends on the 12th.
Okay,
It
so-
ends on Sunday, so I may either travel Sunday or Monday, I'm
But
not
the
sure.
14th, which
So
is
the
Tuesday,
14th should be
would
good,
work.
yes.
Okay,
Don, what about?
14th would work after that.
no,
Okay, so
Yeah, I'm in trouble
Tuesday, August
much after
14th.
that.
okay.
Is our
So that's our
backup.
backup. All right.
Okay. All right. All right. Next up is the school committee policy manual. So,
I feel like we should play the Rocky theme here. I think we've been working on this for like a year.
Yes.
so you should have all received an email that would create a document like this. I did go through, so Jim Hardy, who has been our consultant, worked up all of our changes, provided them to me. I did go through and went against all my notes from the meetings and double-checked and read them, caught a few things where my notes said that we were going with the Mashpee version, and then there were a few typos and corrections. Don also looked through as well and gave me a few changes that I have incorporated today, as well as his questions. We went over those. So I feel that this document is good to go. I don't know if anyone else had a chance to look at it. What happens after this is once it is voted, Jim will eventually create the finalized version. And like Hope was saying today, we want it to be a searchable document, so when it's on our website, if a topic comes up, we will label everything as best we can, but still to be able to search a topic, which sometimes appears in more than one place, is a helpful tool, and I would think that they have that ability to do that.
So do we know if, because I know Jeff also had some questions on some things, do we know if his concerns were
His
addressed?
questions were on Paul's
From,
activity
yes,
account.
yeah, from yesterday, I remember that email, but didn't he have questions from last meeting? I can't
Well,
remember off the top of
everything
my
we
head. It's one of
addressed that we went over from the last
Yep.
meeting was followed up with Jim. Any
Okay.
changes were made. The main list from the prior time was Don's list,
those. Okay,
which he did respond to all of those. And then any changes that we worked through from our last meeting are integrated into there based
Okay.
on what.
I just want to make sure, and
Yep,
obviously,
yep,
at any time we need to go back and look at an individual policy, we can do that, so.
yep.
All right, so,
I just had a couple of questions. I didn't get a chance to go through.
Sure.
So, in regard to bonding of employees,
Yes, Paul,
are
I
we doing-
asked
I didn't
him
think we were doing that.
The what?
the bonding of employees, that question.
I'm trying to get an answer on that. I called the town treasurer.
Okay,
Okay, so I'll get back to you on that.
because the policy says that we are.
Right. I called them today when I found out that that was in the policy.
Okay.
Yeah, he is checking.
So I'll have an answer.
Yeah, because related to that then is what's the amount, which is in another policy regarding student activity accounts.
Right. So the question will be, does that cover the people that are in student activity, or do I pull out a separate bond for them?
Right. Okay.
So that would change in the student activity also.
Okay. And then, the only other question that I don't think I had resolved was, in regard to the Student Advisory Committee, it's on the last, on the back,
Right.
that I noticed that we now have a requirement to meet every month.
Every other month, At least.
Every other month.
while school's in session. You maybe would want to have a member who might attend, be sort of liaison to that group, because the student advisory committee, I don't know when they meet at the high school. I presume it's after school.
But Matt,
Yes.
I thought Skyla, as the student rep, is representing that group to all of you. So that's how that happens, is my understanding.
Well, there's two parts to that policy.
I've got an eye problem, I can't read it from here.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm teasing.
So the first part of it says that the committee will meet at least once every other month while school is in session with the Student Advisory Committee, which is composed of 5 students.
Right.
The second part of that indicates that the chairperson of that committee is an ex officio member of the school committee, which is happening.
Yes.
So the first part,
Right.
I
You're
don't
right.
believe is happening. And I'm
It's
not
always
sure-
been, it's always been in our policy.
It's always
It's
been
not
there.
new,
Okay.
but one of those.
It's one of those we
Doing
haven't
that.
been adhering to. Okay. Didn't know that.
Neither did I.
Anyone else?
So I guess we'll have to address that.
And there are no idling signs back at the loading dock areas of every school. That
At
is
the
where they
loading
are.
area.
The buses don't idle, I will say that much. So
No,
there
that,
could be some cars idling, waiting to pick up children. No idle zone.
So we will need a motion, but I didn't know if you wanted to make the motion because obviously you wanted to get information from whatever it is on that one policy, if you want to make it with that pending or whatever. So if you'd like to do that, you can include that in the motion. Otherwise, we can just make the standard motion to approve and address it later.
yeah, I'm fine with approving it, you know, as is.
Okay.
Or as the current version, I guess.
Because, I mean, we probably do want them bonded, and that's what the
Okay.
policy says.
All right, so in
would-
that case,
That would make sense, but
so we need a
second.
motion to adopt the new school committee policy manual and rescind any and all previous versions.
So moved.
second.
All right. Motion by Nicole, second by Don. Any other discussion? All right. Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
enthusiastic, yes. And yes for me as well. So that's 4-1. New policy manual is adopted.
Wait,
Right.
wait a minute.
I'm sorry, 4-0. We are missing one.
All right.
Thank you.
I had a little heart attack.
Wouldn't matter anyway with that.
And I just want to say thank you to you and Hope for doing the lion's share of the work on that in terms of, I mean, that putting together the synthesis of all the changes and coordinating with Mask and everything. I think you really leveraged our investment pretty well because I feel like you did more work than Jim did, but it's okay. He's still got more to do, so.
That
But
sounds
thank
a
you.
Massive
Good process,
undertaking.
good process.
Yes. All right, now that we finally have that behind us, we have the school committee self-evaluations that I hope everybody got in.
Well, so we all did get in as of today.
Great.
So we are I am requesting that this be put on hold. It's going to be something that's talked about at the retreat and then presented out
Okay.
at the August meeting. So I now have all 5 data points that I can start to pull together.
Okay.
So thank you to everyone for doing the Survey Monkey.
Was Don the last one? You can tell me.
I wouldn't know.
It's all anonymous.
We
I
also-
don't know. I still don't know.
Oh,
But we have your IP address.
Ah,
okay, good. All right, well,
All right, so we'll put that on the August.
sounds good. So we're gonna move that to
Retreat and-
August as
Yep.
well?
trying to keep the meeting moving here.
Yep.
Because
It's
we're
hot
running
in here,
behind
isn't it?
schedule.
Seems to get hotter, yeah.
It's getting warmer, yeah.
All right, next we have the discussion on the request to name the library.
And I don't know if you wanted a copy of the letter passed out again.
Oh, same letter?
Same letter, I don't know if
Everybody wants it.
everybody, yeah.
This is from Terry.
So have we heard back from, because obviously there was the discussion between this library at the high school and the library at Quashnet. I know it really didn't make a difference to us much, we're given ideas. I didn't hear back anything from Terry Cook or anybody else as to which way they really wanted to go. Did you hear anything back?
I did not. I don't know that they even thought about the Quashnet
Okay.
Library originally. I think for that sort of sacred territory for school committee meetings, it makes more sense. And also, the fact that it's being renovated is a great time to sort of acknowledge all that Janice did for students in that setting. So, kind of makes sense from my perspective.
So did we actually reach out to them and didn't hear back? Is that what I heard?
I know that original email, I did respond, and that idea was put into that email.
And you didn't
I
get
did not hear back.
anything back? So what's the next step then? We have to bring them here?
Well, I guess it's up to us if we want to postpone it and try to get them to come in. Well, is it even on, it's not even on the
It's not
agenda to
start,
vote,
yeah.
so yeah.
This is just
So I guess, yeah, I would agree that that would probably be the next step, is to hopefully have them here and put it on the agenda to vote, have that discussion and vote one way or another on whatever.
Yeah, since we just approved our policy, there's a policy that we need to follow.
Yes.
in regard to
Very good,
naming,
very good.
so.
Very good. Because that was one of the things that was holding it up as well, if you remember, was
Yeah.
approving the policy, which is now done.
Right.
So,
We'll follow the policy.
So can, Patty, can you find out what
I'll
we need
connect.
to do next, and then, maybe we need to invite, just, so is our August meeting the retreat, or do we have another meeting?
No, there's another
Another
one
meeting.
Oh, okay.
Two
after.
meetings that month, you're very fortunate.
There's what?
2 meetings, the retreat and
Oh, there's not another meeting, okay.
the 22nd.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna miss that one.
Is 22nd?
And we will miss you as well.
I mean,
It'll be the first meeting I've missed.
What vote do you want?
Okay.
Oh, George. All right.
For the record, though, not for the record, more informal discussion.
Oh, it's on record.
there's nothing informal.
I mean, I like the idea of the Quashnet Library for the reasons that you stated. I don't want to call Mark out over there just
Or Mary Kate.
right now, but do you guys have any strong opinions about this request?
To
Do you know
name,
what we're talking about?
to name the library after
After
Janice
Janice
Mills, whether it's this library or the newly renovated Quashnet Library.
I think she's very deserving. She dedicated an awful lot of time to Mashpee schools. I'd be happy to.
Mark?
Disaster and school community meetings,
Yeah. That makes the most sense.
Her spirit's there.
Okay. So you don't have a preference necessarily, but as I understand it, they didn't come to you and ask you if this was something,
It was brought up, yeah, it was brought up, but not in a substantial way.
okay,
And the other piece too, where there is that sort of small memorial for Janice here outside of the auditorium with some of her paintings and a plaque that recognizes her years of service. So it would be nice to have a piece at Quashnet as well, so she's represented at both schools.
yeah.
Would be good.
I agree. All right, so I guess we'll go with that. We'll attempt to reach out to them and get whichever members of that group to come out and speak about it. All right. Next, we have a discussion on, this was something that Jeff unfortunately is not here for, but
Right.
we could still speak on a discussion on moving the custodians under the school department.
And it was definitely a discussion that we were going to have with the town manager and assistant town manager when we do our quarterly meetings, which got postponed from July 9th. We were supposed to meet, I believe it's next week, so we do want to continue to pursue this, which looks like a multi-year little project, but
Right, but we hadn't had a chance to.
Yeah.
we have not.
So it is something that you plan on doing at the next meeting that you have with the
Talking.
Yes.
talking, yes,
Yes,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
Talking.
So
Okay.
could we just table this then until after Patty and Hope have had a chance?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it was just on the agenda to discuss it. I'm not sure if Jeff had questions on it that he wanted to address, but obviously, unfortunately, he had other engagements, so he couldn't be here. So if anybody else has any questions or any comments they want to make on it while it's on the agenda, feel free to do so, otherwise we can move on.
Do we need to formally vote as a committee to support that,
Support what?
moving the custodians?
To actually make it happen?
Yeah.
I think that was something that we were looking at to see if because wasn't there, we were looking at policies and we were looking at some documentation as to whether or not that actually even, I would imagine some sort of vote takes place, but I don't know how that would be.
Well, I don't think we have to formally vote to do it, other
Yeah.
than this is an initiative that
Yes.
we want to have happen,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Because basically I believe everyone is in agreement that we want to see this happen.
I mean,
And didn't it come up when one of the working groups was reporting out at a previous school committee meeting, where I felt that we were sort of, the next step was we were going to talk to the town
Yeah,
manager.
that came up, I think it was
Vaguely
2 meetings
remember that.
ago.
And I think
when-
we asked if we had to vote at that point, and we said no, because it's literally just a conversation. It's not, hello to that. It's not doing anything except having a conversation, and we don't need
Moved to adjourn.
a formal, George.
We don't need a formal directive at this point?
No, That's what was said a couple of meetings ago, and I would
This is just
assert that that's still,
I was under the impression, yeah, that we are still collecting information to see if this is viable and
Okay.
worthwhile. Yeah, I don't know if the committee agrees with that, but that was my impression.
Yeah, might be so.
No?
Okay.
Okay.
it's weird.
And I think within the finance working group, at one of the meetings where we talked about Paul connecting with Catherine to get some of the budgetary figures that go along with those custodians.
Right. They come back to me on the end of the year report, but that'll be coming up in the next month or so too. So those will be the figures that it costs for that, for the whole year.
And I know it's not on the agenda, but I didn't know if you were interested in a school choice update.
Sure.
We're in the second window. So you voted for 38 seats for FY19, and after the first submission or application period, we filled 13 of those seats. So there's currently 25 remaining, and you can see what grade levels there are open seats. And so the second window for applications ends on July 31st, and then it remains open throughout the year if there are seats unfilled.
Okay,
So it's just,
Thank you for the input.
thank you.
All right. That's it for that item. We'll move on to new business. First one is attendees. So that's the Mass Joint Conference in November. That is every year. I'm assuming
yes,
you have
it's
some information on
seven.
that.
Right, if you are interested, Gail can send you the link, but she can also register you. So it's mainly getting, I think there's an early, you get a slight discount if you register before August 10th. That's the right conference I'm thinking of. So it's just sort of getting it so that you can communicate to Gail if you're interested in going, and she can get you registered. So the 7th, 8th, and 9th is the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the 10th, there's something usually on that half in the morning.
I think you're right. I think I see an email come out where it was initially July 15th and they extended it to August 10th, I think, for the early bird.
So Gail will reach back out to you because we won't probably get together before that deadline for a slight discount passes.
Is that at the Cape Codder?
No,
No.
it's down at
the
the,
conference center.
Oh.
Is that
Stumpy's.
the Rotary there past
Yeah,
the
the
Valley
Rotary
thing?
with the,
Yeah. What was it?
That was the one we went to last year.
Oh,
remember?
okay, yeah, I'd like to go.
Do
Sign me
we,
up.
do we know who is the voting member?
If we stick with last year, it was me.
It would be
So
you.
if we want
Okay,
to-
okay, good.
Oh, that's right, we're not gonna meet, well, we will meet before then, so we can discuss it again.
Okay.
all right, so Gail will send you out just an email so you can correspond back to her and confirm that you want to go, and then she'll get you set up. Okay?
Anything else on that? All right, next under business, we have the approval of non-union salary increase. This was my fault. Last meeting, for the really on the agenda. Appreciate Tom for reminding me.
Oh.
So you have in front of you the salary increases that we did discuss in the executive last meeting or the meeting before and approved. So we are going to reaffirm the vote that was taken. So if you had a chance to look at the document, and I can get a motion, please.
Just so you know, the executive sessions that were on April 4th, April 25th, and May 23rd, where these were discussed and voted on.
So I believe we had two separate votes.
Yes, superintendent's was separate from the rest of them. So I will need two motions, yes. Thank you, John.
So I'll make a motion to reaffirm the increase for the superintendent for FY19 at 2.5%. And to add, we
We already
voted
approved
it.
that contract extension last
So
week.
we don't need to do that. So it's 2.5% increase for FY19.
A motion by Don, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by George. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Nicole, how do you vote?
Yes.
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 Yes? Right. 4 to none. Motion passes. And now I need a motion for the remainder of the non-union salary increases.
Make a motion that we approve the non-union employee salary increases for FY '19 as listed, with the exception of the superintendent.
All right, motion by John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Nicole. Discussion? Nicole?
Yes.
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 And yes. 4, none opposed, motion passed. Thank you. Next is discussion on the working group protocols. I know this is also something that Jeff wanted to address. I don't necessarily want to speak for him. He did kind of give me a little bit of rundown of what he was talking about. I think he was looking at mainly as to what we had in mind for the working groups, as a, in the way they bring information forward to the committee, and whether the committee will specifically vote on things that they recommend, or if the committee will also consider things that are not necessarily recommended, and the committee can still bring them forward, choose to bring them forward, and make motions and vote on those things as well. I know that was part of the communication I had with him. Again, I don't want to speak for him. So it's on the agenda. If anybody else wants to address anything on there, we can always talk about this again in the future when he's present. Does anybody else have anything?
It would probably be best to wait till Jeff is here. I know some of the things we've had conversations about, but as this is his idea, I think it's
Yep.
best if he express it. So
I
I'll
agree.
just move that to an item on the next meeting.
Sounds good. All right, we'll carry this forward to potentially to the August meeting. All right, next, we have a discussion on renaming Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day, under new business.
That was me. We would not be the first school committee in the state to vote to do such a thing, but we certainly be in the forefront. We're honoring Columbus, a man who history has kind of provided us, was basically a bully. He was interested in slavery. He brought disease unknowingly. He brought disease, cleared out almost 90% of the population that he visited. We teach racial tolerance here. We teach the evils of slavery. We teach the evils of genocide, and yet we're having a day that is set aside for this individual who did all of that. And I just think it is time for us to look at that and decide whether or not we, as a school committee, want to rename it to another name, which I'm calling Indigenous Peoples Day.
Well said.
And just to share,
Well said.
in researching, when George had brought this up, Pittsfield Public Schools has changed their school calendar, so Columbus Day is now called Indigenous Peoples Day. Town-wise, many towns have done it through a town meeting vote in order for that to occur. And I did reach out to the tribe today, and Trish Kalanui did respond. She says, I can say in a general sense our tribal leadership citizenship would be extremely encouraged by such a change through the Mashpee Public School District. And she would defer to Jesse, the vice chair, in terms of the official comment, but Jesse didn't respond to me. You will note I have included a resolution passed last fall that officially declares that the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe will observe every second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day. Again, thank you for seeking our input. I'm certain such a change throughout the Mashpee school system will make a difference in the lives of our youngest community citizens. And so their actual, they have the approval of this, basically a proclamation that changes the second Monday of October to Indigenous People Day. So I think George's point was to rename that particular day on our district calendar.
And so I guess my only question would be, physically making this change, so is this something that, with our calendar already being approved, was coming close to the beginning of the school year, would this be, what kind of undertaking would this be this coming year, or should we, if we were to, because it's not on the calendar to vote, on the agenda to
it
vote
would be a
anyway.
vote next time.
If there's something we were to vote and pass next meeting, would this be something that would be a big undertaking to change all the calendars this year, or should it be something for next year's calendar?
Personally, I don't see it as a huge lift to change. It's not changing when kids go to school or don't go to school. So on our district calendar where it says that, I don't know if it's October 8th, whatever the day is this year, it shows us as Columbus Day as a holiday, and we would rename it there, and then, prior to it being put in their handbooks.
Well, that's what I was getting at too. So we don't have any printed material or anything that like has been mass produced with stuff on it. Okay. Okay.
So I don't think it would be difficult.
Sounds good. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
The only question I have is there any issues with any of the contracts that we have, which do reference
Oh, yeah.
Columbus Day as a holiday, if we were to rename it?
That's a
And
good
I
point.
don't know the answer to that.
Well, we could end up with sort of a side agreement or MOU that just designates that beginning with school year 18-19, Columbus Day is being replaced with.
Being renamed.
So we should probably reach out to the teachers union prior to the next.
I'm supposed to meet with the president on Friday, so,
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just get confirmation from Jesse. I think it's pretty clear.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, could we put it on for vote at next meeting?
Yes, I agree with you. Yep, so we'll add this to the next agenda, the August 22nd agenda, I believe, for a vote. Thank you, George. All right, and last item under new business would be National Night Out on August 7th.
So the National Night Out event, which there's a flyer, in the back of the packet. I think this is its third year of doing it, but it's if you've never gone, it's a great event. It's free for families, and the police and the fire are involved, and then there are several tables under a big tent, like the Cultural Council's been there in the past. I think the Substance Use Task Force has been there, but it would be a great opportunity to have a Mashpee Public School table. And our essay challenge is still going on through the 15th, so this would be another opportunity to get the word out. There will be a week left for someone to choose to write an essay. So I was putting it on the agenda to encourage a similar, we don't have to serve ice cream because Bowler Cave's already there, but just to be present at this event, to interact with the families and pass out the cards for the essay challenge.
Do we have any idea of how many might have been submitted approximately at this point?
None have been submitted yet.
None.
No, but most people, if you know, you have until August 15th.
I understand, it's summer.
You know that you would, and we're just now getting posters in all of the town buildings and more of the businesses as well, which, as a link to this conversation, these are some posters and cards that we encourage members to take some, possibly connect with.
Well, that's good and bad, because
favorite
obviously
businesses.
we want as many submissions as possible but those of you out there that are looking to submit, that's great news because it increases your odds. So,
And I want to really
Get 'em in.
emphasize to a lot of our graduates who were at the community picnic, and a lot of our students, that they are eligible to participate in this. And they have a lot of great thoughts that I would love to hear. So it's kind of getting it out. I try to do it weekly on Facebook and Twitter, but I'm trying to get out. And this Friday's Enterprise, I believe it's this Friday's, has a separate insert that's the smaller version of this with the survey on the back. That will be in every one of the papers. But that's only to the people that get the paper.
Yeah, can you tell the committee how many they asked for in order to do that?
Was it 2,000? What was it? Scaled it.
It was a number a lot smaller than I thought it should be in a town of 15,000 people.
Yeah, it was 2 or
So-
2,500.
sorry, what was that?
Well, the enterprise asked us to print the inserts,
Yep.
and they only requested a couple thousand.
All right.
So there are not 10,000 people who subscribe to the Mashpee Enterprise, is what I'm.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we have our work cut out for us in terms of getting the word out about the contest. Which is why you need to grab some on your way out.
Make some door magnets for the car.
Temporarily.
Yeah,
Don't have to get permission from any to sign.
Get them, I'll put them on there.
Yeah, they make those, it's easy to get. He said make that into a
Door
door
magnet.
magnet for your
Oh,
car.
yeah. So I had something, I think it's really under item 9, so I'll wait.
So do
It's
we have
related to that.
any other discussion on this
Yeah.
night out? All right, well, then that'll be it for the new business. Move on to committee reports. Anybody have any reports? Committee, anything like that going on? No? Slow summer? No?
We're on our summer schedule.
Yeah. Yes, believe it or not, there have been no sick bank meetings. Right.
You just jinxed yourself.
Right.
Yeah,
Tomorrow.
that's right.
All right, so now on to item agenda 9, it'd be, Nicole? you have
Yeah,
anything?
so I wouldn't call it, well, it is new business because I just wanted to say something to the committee, and I'm sorry Jeff isn't here because, so maybe he'll watch the tape. But I really just wanted to say that I think the lack of a designated outreach coordinator is impacting all the things that we care about and that we want to see change in this town. You know, the positive public image of our schools, the ability to engage with families, broadening awareness of our unique programming. In FY19, we are going to be planning for the implementation of a change to school start times, which has eluded just about every other school district on the Cape. It's going to take a lot of engagement and outreach. We don't have anybody who's going to be doing that other than the people in this room. We have a We Are Mashpee storefront in Mashpee Commons that we are being given that we can't fully take advantage of because we don't have a full-time employee to manage that. And we're cobbling stuff together, and I get that. But we also have a generous individual who donated $1,000 for an essay contest that we can't fully make people aware of because we don't have a person whose job it is to do that every day. So I was meeting with the superintendent this morning, and I saw the pile there, and I grabbed some to take with me. And I left the school, and I had to go to the dry cleaners, and they didn't know about it, so I left a poster with them. And then I had to drop off 2 boxes at the UPS store, and they were all too happy to take a poster and a stack of cards. Then I went over to the Starbucks. There wasn't one there. They took a poster and a stack of cards. Then later on today, because I just couldn't wait for anybody else to do it, I went to the organic market and gave them one. And I noticed that Cape Cod Coffee had posters in their window, and so I walked over there and gave them one. I'm out of cards and posters now, but I mean, the thing is that I just happened to be around today and get the word out, and we have less than a month to get this out. So we're going to do this without a full-time outreach coordinator, but I just think that we have test scores rising, we have course offerings in career and technical education that is just amazing. We have innovative teaching methods. We have this great relationship with the tribe that is growing, and I am really worried about sustaining all these positive gains. I just have seen this again and again in government. Without designating a person to do communications and outreach, it doesn't get done. It gets done, but it gets done, everybody tries to do their best to get it done. And what I don't like about this current method that we're using, that we're doing outreach with, is basically $342 for the next year, is that everyone will get it done, and then we can't ever make the rationale for what we need because we're all trying to make it work under an existing budget and personnel. And so I look at these fine people that are our leadership team in the district. They are certainly spokespeople for our school. I get that. And so is Patty and Hope and all of us. But, there needs to be a person who does this, who thinks about, okay, what else can we do besides the Mashpee enterprise? I love Patty's column, but that's not gonna cut it. That's not gonna be some Twitter posts and some Facebook. We have to be continuously doing this, and especially if we have this goal of engaging all stakeholders. So fostering the shared responsibility in the community for our students and the outcomes that we want to gain, for building trust, collaboration, and engagement. I mean, I really am worried, particularly because I am sitting on that school start time implementation team. We're gonna have people volunteering to be on that, in addition to whether they're people in the community with full-time jobs or people in the administration who already have other work. And I think that I really want, maybe if it's not the next agenda, because I want to make sure that I'm at the meeting, I want us to consider using school choice funds to, in this school year, demonstrate the utility of that position so that we can feel confident that funding it in 19 is something that we have a strong rationale for. And most importantly, it allows us to take advantage of current opportunities, the generosity of the community member, the Mashpee Commons, and to ultimately be successful in implementing a change to school start times. So I just wanted to put that out there because my experience today freaked me out a little bit. And it's not a criticism of anybody, but 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago we had a halftime outreach coordinator. We let her leave without backfilling it. And the folks who are running around trying to do this now have other jobs. And I'm sure they would have got to those stores eventually. Oh, I also stopped by the Chamber of Commerce, who said, oh, Mary Lou may know about this, but I don't. Let me take some posters and a stack of cards, and let me put this in our newsletter for Thursday so all our members are aware of it. I mean, I do this for a living, so it's really easy for me, I get that, but it's also something that would be really easy for a person employed by the district to do 100% of the time. And that says nothing to supporting Career Day and volunteers and Southport Falcons and Falcon Friends and all this other stuff that is kind of new and frankly working quite well that we need to sustain. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I just wanted to put that in your heads for consideration.
I appreciate it. Very valuable, good information. Well said, Tim.
I think that's a very viable suggestion and kind of builds upon what I read in the newspaper about, the town and its endeavors to engage lobbyists, because that's basically what we're talking about, is someone to lobby for the Mashpee School District.
I wouldn't characterize it as that, but sure.
And that's
it.
what it is.
By
Maybe a little
definition,
better.
it has a negative connotation
Yeah.
behind that. So.
Well, it does, but in my mind, it's the same, in my mind, it's the same thing, right? And they managed to find, in their very tight physical budget, an ability to be able to do that. And I don't personally see why we can't figure out how to accomplish that ourselves.
Sure, so I think
So, let's definitely talk about this next time.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Certainly can.
But
Well,
you're
thank
not here at the next one, so.
We'll talk about it.
I mean, we could still have a discussion on, if Jeff's here, obviously, then we can get more information from his insight. See what the agenda looks like, I guess.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything, want to bring up maybe for next meeting, or?
So just in regard to potentially over the next meeting, which I believe is the 22nd.
22nd, yes.
Right, I definitely will not be available on the 22nd. That's why I was asking.
I thought you were suggesting you move it because
No,
of me. You.
I'll take it. I'll take it. All right? So,
I am here.
As am I, so as long as Jeff's gonna be here, we should have a quorum.
yeah, you have 3 of these. Just a FYI.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, only, I'm sorry, George. I just was gonna say, I guess I should say it in public session, but can you mention that to, when you see Rodney, when you have your next quarterly meeting next week, that at least one school committee member feels strongly about using choice funds in FY18 to hire this position, and find out what the cost to the town would be for those associated benefits. Because I don't want to poke him in the eye and I don't want to surprise him.
No, we know it's a ballpark of 9,500 if someone took the most expensive health plan.
So he can take that off the top, and I'll approve it. Just tell him he can take it off the top.
Thank you, Fiona. On that note, I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by George, second.
Second,
Second by Nicole.
even though I'm having fun.
Anybody want to talk about it? No?
No.
Nicole?
Please.
Yes.
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 And yes. Thank you, everybody.